At today's GSM, a single nominee for mod failed to receive enough votes to be promoted, with more votes against than in favor. Staff downvoted a proposal by Chief Bazex to expedite the approval of projects and events at GSMs. Staff also stopped short of lifting the numerical limit on how many seaplanes a town can have, but raised that limit across the board. The Flag Park in Central City is getting a new caretaker, a new expansion, and new guidelines. And as an Arctic Line extension officially opens, the Southern and Desert Lines are cleared for extensions in the Southwest. We'll have all that plus an overview of today's project and event approvals and rejections. It's Saturday, September 11th, 2021, and this is GSM Recap from MBS News. Good day, I'm Kitty Catwoman231 from MBS News. This month's GSM featured a single candidate under consideration for promotion to mod, Harborandom 852, who was not promoted. At the meeting, the preliminary vote count had 3 staff voting in favor, 8 voting neutral, and 2 voting against, falling significantly short of the majority threshold of 7 votes in favor needed to be promoted. And the final tally saw 2 neutral staff switching their votes to against, resulting in 3 votes in favor, 6 neutral, and 4 against, exceeding the threshold of 3 against votes that would block Harbor's promotion even if he had received a majority of votes in favor. Staff who voted neutral and against cited concerns over Harbor's behavior and rule violations as reasons they were not in favor of supporting his promotion, some of which were mentioned by Mojito 1014 in his nomination for Harbor, including a warning Harbor received in April for violating the 300 block rule that resulted in a 3-day temp ban. CCC 9, who voted against on the nomination, expressed concern that Harbor's warnings indicated a lack of knowledge of the rules that could hinder his responsibility of rule enforcement as a staff member. Skelly Zamperman, who was one of the staff members to change from a neutral to an against vote, took issue with Harbor's attitude and rash decision-making. Responding to CCC, Chief Bazex expressed that familiarity with the rules and their enforcement was a skill that could be improved on the job, but said that Harbor's handling of stressful situations was a factor in his decision to vote neutral and not in favor. Nita Nanel was one of the 3 mods to vote in favor, and while he acknowledged the issues brought up with Harbor by other staff members, he spoke of his positive relations with Harbor and his faith that Harbor would be able to execute his duties as a mod. Harbor ultimately was not promoted, and being the only nominee, there were no new staff members promoted at today's GSM. Staff considered a proposal by Chief Bazex at the GSM to streamline the future GSM process by cutting back discussion of project and event proposals. At most GSMs, the bulk of the meeting is taken up by the private portion, mod nominations, and the community issues section, while projects and events are usually dealt with rather quickly. Chief proposed that these types of proposals be automatically approved without a full staff meeting discussion, unless an item is specifically flagged by a staff member for discussion in greater detail. Members and other staff expressed concerns that the proposal could inadvertently lead to less scrutiny of proposals, while also depriving members of the right to sit in on the debate and make public comments. During the discussion, Chief raised proposals to address these concerns, including allowing members to issue comments that would result in a topic being further discussed, but staff consensus ultimately did not support the proposal and it was not adopted. Harborandom 852 sent in a proposal to lift certain regulations on seaplanes. Arguing that heavy restrictions on seaplanes did not match with their low level of demand, Harbor proposed lifting the numerical limit on the number of seaplanes a town is allowed to have. He argued that seaplanes function similar to boats, which are unregulated in terms of how many a town is allowed to have. Staff were not convinced of the lack of a need for a limit on seaplanes, with Chief Bazex expressing the opinion that the lack of demand Harbor cited did not mean the regulation was too restrictive. But staff did adopt an alternate proposal from Harbor to raise the number of seaplanes towns are allowed to have at each rank. The limits for councilor, mayor, and senator towns were increased by 1, and the limits for governor and premier cities were increased by 2. You can see the old and new seaplane limits for each town rank on your screen. PTLD Knight proposed adding new rules for the Flag Park in Central City. Located directly adjacent to the west of Central Park, the Flag Park originally opened at the dawn of the New World in 2014 and holds the flags of the servers, towns, and cities. In his proposal, PTLD expressed concern that capacity at the Flag Park was running out and that spaces were being taken up by unranked towns and MPOs. He proposed a guideline that only councilor towns and higher, and nations and states including a councilor town, be allowed to have flags in the park. Staff decided that they would not take a heavy-handed approach towards the Flag Park, but added a general guideline that flags should be of towns registered on the town list, which can include unranked towns, and of MPOs. Chief Bazex was also designated as the caretaker of the park, and it was decided that the park will be extended west onto empty land behind the MRT Mail Center to add extra capacity. Missa Solemnis's short western extension of the Arctic Line opened at the GSM today. The extension adds only 3 new stations and serves to connect the Arctic Line from its previous terminus in Colorado City to the nearby town of Bristol, where it now meets the MRT Western Line. No new stations are open for claiming, as all of the new stations are in the existing towns of Colorado City and Bristol, and the extension's main purpose was simply to connect the Arctic Line to the Western Line. Missa also proposed much longer extensions to the MRT Southern and Desert lines in Southwest Zeta, which were approved. The Southern line will be extended from its current western terminus in Yukon, and the Desert line from its current southwestern terminus in Grey Cloud. The Southern line will go west towards the Zeta border before turning north to serve towns in the Nansei-Gunto region, including Shahai, Kazushima, and Shenghua, as well as the town of Santa Abeja. The Desert Line has 2 alternate proposed routings, one of which would bypass most of Nansei-Gunto, following part of the route of the Southern Line, and the other of which would serve the Nansei-Gunto towns of New Singapore, St. Helena, and Wangnyanga. The line will then travel south towards the southwest corner of the world, including stops in the towns of Sunflower Plains and Porton, as well as Uacam Beach, where the second iteration of Time to Make My Move's hotel building competition was held. At the GSM, Chief Bazex noted that as the world is unlikely to be further expanded in the future, this is likely to be the last extension the Desert Line will see, and the last western extension of the Southern Line. Those are the major decisions made at today's GSM. On your screen is an overview of the status of the project and event proposals discussed at today's GSM. You can always watch our full GSM broadcast right here on our channel to see the meeting for yourself. And we'll continue to broadcast GSMs and ISMs in the months to come. For more news, you can follow us at twitter.com/news_MBS. From MBS News in Central City, I'm Kitty Catwoman 231, and this has been GSM Recap on MBS.